Hi guys! Yesterday we read through almost 3 chapters of the Parker Inheritance, and we stopped about halfway through chapter 10. So I think it'd be a good idea to do a little recap of what we read. We started off with Brandon and Candace talking to Brandon's grandfather, and he gave us a little bit of insight to what life was like during the 50s and 60s, and told us about Mary and Alan, the guy who lost an eye. And then we got a little bit of flashback to 1914 and Enoch's life as a child. And we learned that he was forced to work in fields at only 6 years old. And then where we left off was when Candace and Brandon had gone to the Perkins Memorial Room at the high school to learn some more about the Allens and the Washingtons from Miss McMillan. So that's where I will start up again in chapter 10. We're looking for information about Enoch Washington, Candace said. He was a teacher at Perkins a long time ago. That name doesn't sound familiar, she said. Do you know when he taught here? The 50s, we think, Brandon said. His wife was named Leanne, and they had a daughter named Siobhan. He was forced out of town. Miss McMillan cocked her head to the side. Tell me his name again? Enoch Washington, Candace said. They used to call him Big Dub. I've heard a few locals talk about him, but they never used his given name, she sighed. Just to be clear, the memorial doesn't have any information about the game. Candace and Brandon looked at each other. Brandon shrugged. So did Candace. You have heard about the big tennis exhibition? Miss McMillan asked. We have no idea what you're talking about, Candace said. Miss McMillan hesitated for a moment. According to second-hand sources, in 1957, the tennis teams from Perkins and Wallace, the school for white kids, held a private match. The Perkins boys beat the Wallace team pretty badly. The next day, Big Dub and his family left town. Some say he was run out, others say he left on his own accord. Was Marion Allen on the Wallace team? Candace asked. No, he was in his late 20s then, she said. He wore an eye patch, which I'm assuming would have made playing tennis pretty difficult. But his younger brother, Glenn, was a member of the team. Isn't there anything written about the game? Brandon asked. It has to be a big deal. A black and a white school playing against each other back then? I'm sure it would have been a very big deal if it had been a real sanctioned game, but they supposedly played in the middle of the night at one of the high school's courts. She began walking. I want to show you something. She led them to the sports area. A large shelf took up most of the wall, with various trophies, championship plates, and photos enshrined behind glass. Above the shelf hung a number of paintings. One series of 5 paintings showed a tennis game between black and white players, where each painting displayed a different score, from 0 to 0 to 40 to 15. Other artwork showcased additional sports: a football player scoring a touchdown, a baseball player swinging a bat, and a sprinter handing off a baton to a teammate. That art is worth more than every laptop in the computer lab. It was commissioned specifically for us. Personally, I think our donor wasted his money. She pointed to the shelf. See that trophy down there? Brandon knelt in front of the glass. It says... He jerked back. It's the trophy from the game. Perkins Wallace Tennis Exhibition, August 10th, 1957. Champions. Miss McMillan tapped the glass. My procedure came in one morning to find that trophy sitting on her desk. It seemed like someone had gone to a lot of effort to have it made, so she added it to the display. We included a photo of the tennis team from the 1957 yearbook, though we have no idea who played that night. Candace thought back to the first clue in the letter. This was all interesting, but it wasn't giving them the information they needed. Did Coach Washington have any hobbies? Any other sports beside tennis that he liked as much? Miss McMillan frowned for a moment. Candace worried she had said too much, that somehow Miss McMillan knew all about her grandmother's letter and the hidden treasure. Then her eyes lit up. No, when I was looking through some of the old files a few years ago, I saw a case of DVDs with his name on them. Give me a second. Maybe those have some additional information about him. As Miss McMillan walked away, Candace looked at the trophy again. She took off her backpack and pulled out the letter. August 10th, 2007, she said. The letter was dated exactly 50 years after the tennis game. No way that can be a coincidence. Brandon pulled out his notepad. Can you read off the inscription? Candace knelt to get closer to the trophy. She read the inscription for Brandon, then slid it over to get a better look of the photo of the tennis team. It didn't take much for her to figure out who Big Dub was, since he towered over everyone else. A tall girl stood in the photo as well. Candace wondered if that was Siobhan. Miss McMillan returned with a DVD case. I took a quick peek. It looks like someone made Tribune videos for a number of past coaches. The videos are short, only 10 or 15 minutes long. Candace rose and took the DVD from Miss McMillan. Is that Siobhan Washington in the photo? She said, the name slowly to be certain she was pronouncing it correctly. I'm not sure, Miss McMillan said, but the players' names are listed in the yearbook. I'll grab one for you. Brandon made another note in his pad. How much do you want to bet our mysterious benefactor is behind the trophy as well? He said to Candace. Miss McMillan had begun to walk away, but stopped. A mysterious what? She asked. He smiled sheepishly. Oh, nothing. It's what we've been calling the guy who made all these anonymous donations to the city. You know, for the library and the memorial? Candace glared at Brandon. Shut up, she tried to say with her eyes. Our benefactor isn't anonymous. His name is James Parker. Candace's head whipped towards Miss McMillan. We thought, as I understand it, he was never trying to hide who he was. He just didn't want to draw attention to himself. He made most of his contributions through his charitable foundation. There's even a plaque with his name on it, Miss McMillan said, pointing toward the wall. Was he at the game that night? Candace asked. I doubt it. Mr. Parker was from Colorado. She glanced at her watch. I'm sure this was just some big tax write-off for him. What was his name again? Brandon asked, flipping to a fresh page in his notepad. James Parker, she said. Kids, I hate to run you out, but I've got to get moving. I'm supposed to be on my way to Atlanta right now. I'll be back on Monday if you want to swing by. Just give me a call ahead of time. Candace barely heard the rest of what Miss McMillan had said. Her head was stuck on one word, Atlanta. If you don't mind, can we still borrow a yearbook? Brandon asked. Sure thing, just bring it back in good condition. She started to walk away again. Candace stepped forward. Where are you going? She asked quietly. To get a yearbook? No, I mean in Atlanta. Where are you going in Atlanta? I used to live there. Her stomach flip-flopped as she talked. My sorority sister invited me to visit. We'll probably go to a cookout, maybe a movie. She's a die-hard Braves fan, but I'm not about to let her drag me to a game. Oh, okay, Candace said. Then she forced a smile and added, Sounds like fun. As Miss McMillan disappeared through a door at the rear of the room, Candace wondered what had happened to her throwback Hank Aaron jersey she had always worn to baseball games. She had outgrown it last summer, but her father had promised to buy her a new one this year. She considered reminding him about the jersey when she saw him that afternoon, then decided against it. It wasn't like she needed it anyway, not here in Lambert. Miss McMillan returned a few moments later with the yearbook. She handed it to Brandon. Anything else I can help y'all with? One more question, Candace said, her stomach safely back in one place. Do you have any contact information for James Parker? Afraid not, hon, Miss McMillan said. James Parker has been missing for more than 10 years. Chapter 11. Do you have a computer and internet at home? Candace asked. Please tell me that you do. Now that we know his name, this could be our big break, Candace said. It's super slow, but it works, Brandon said. Do you really think it's that simple? We do a web search on this Parker guy and that leads us to the money? That seems, I don't know, convenient? Too easy. Maybe. It's just that I can't help but wonder, what if this was the one clue my grandma missed, like we almost did? What if... She let her words float up to the top of the school's fake blue sky. She didn't want to talk about the rest of what she was thinking. Like how finding Parker, or rather, not finding Parker, could have been the one thing that set her grandmother off track. The thing that led her to digging up Vickers Park when she should have been searching somewhere else. But the letter talks about Siobhan's parents, not James Parker. Brandon pushed the door open, allowing sunlight to spill into the school. I wish we'd had more time in there. We probably should have asked more questions about Leanne Washington. Maybe there's something about her on the DVD. Candace tugged on her backpack straps. Do you have a DVD player as well? A desktop computer and internet service weren't the only luxuries Candace and her mother were living without this summer. Our computer should be able to play it, he said. I suggest we go to the library to be on the safe side, but it's closed on Fridays. So home it is. He gave her a nervous smile. Unless I can convince you to stop for lunch. We're not too far from Sam's Superette. They have the best chili cheese dogs in town. Hot dogs from a gas station? Candace stuck her tongue out. No, thank you. A service station, Brandon corrected. Or maybe we can get some ice cream. Candace couldn't tell where Brandon was going with his comments. She was hungry, but she also wanted to see the video and look up James Parker before her dad arrived. Hold on, she said, pulling out her mom's phone. Let me see where my dad is. She quickly opened a message to her father and then typed ETA. Still a few hours away, had to check a construction site. How is Candy? Candace quickly typed back. This is Candy. I'm good. Can't wait to see you. And no texting and driving. Safety, man. She stared at the screen for a few seconds, then went back and corrected the text. This is Candace. I'm good. Can't wait to see you. And no texting and driving. Safety, man. She sent the text and then pocketed the phone. My dad will be here soon, she said. We should go to your house and do more research. I'm fine with a sandwich from home. They started back toward their neighborhood on bikes. As they entered their subdivision, Brandon slammed on his brakes. Crap, he muttered. I knew this would happen. 3 kids rode toward them. They were too far away for Candace to really see them. But with one glance at Brandon, she knew it had to be Milo and his buddies. Now Candace understood why Brandon had wanted to delay coming back home, why he'd been hesitant to bike in the first place. He had been trying to avoid Milo. They'll chase me down if I try to take off, Brandon said. You go ahead if you want. Candace shook her head. I'll stay, she said quietly. It was the least she could do. He relaxed a little. Don't worry. Milo would never hit a girl. Probably. He started pedaling. We should meet them in front of Miss Palmer's house. She's always spying out her window. She'll break things up if, well, you know. Candace and Brandon came to a stop and waited for Milo and his friends to reach them. Each wore baggy baseball shorts and old t-shirts and blue high tops. What's going on, Brandon? Milo said. He spoke the name in sing-song manner, drawing out the syllables. Just riding around, Brandon said. Candace had to give him credit. His voice didn't waver. Who's your friend? Milo asked. My name is Candace, she answered. Surprisingly, her voice was solid as well. You're living in Miss Caldwell's old house, one of the boys asked. He took his t-shirt and wiped his forehead. Your mom's the writer? She nodded. So how'd you end up hanging out with Brandon? Milo asked, dragging out the name again. Is he the closest thing to a girl you can find to be friends with? He's more of a girl than his freak sister, one of the other boys said. Leave her alone, Brandon warned, his voice wavering now. Leave them both alone. And I think I'm going to stop right there, because we are almost out of time. And the question that I have for you is, who do you think this James Parker guy really is? And how do you think he is related to the mysterious letter that Candace got? And we'll read again next week.